What am I doing taking shots of Jägermeister on a Friday before lunch? Well, I'm bored, I'm unemployed, and I'm not accustomed to letting my geek show, so liquid courage is a good thing. I'm back today to show you how to make these awesome Underdark crystals. These crystals can be used for Underdark terrain, caves. They can be implied to have magic. There's a number of things you can do with these really cool crystals. Also, I've seen people make jewelry out of them. There are other videos on YouTube you can go to see how to make them, but I'm going to show you how I do mine. The material you're going to need: some rubber bands, a little bit of this floral wire you can get at the Dollar Tree, some rope, some barbecue skewers, some pipe cleaners, aluminum foil, a couple of stirring spoons, scissors, hot pads, don't skip this part, some little glass jars. Sorry, this one's dirty, but it's the only small one I had. Pickle jar. The bigger the crystals you want to make, the bigger the jar you're going to want to have. Some food coloring, depending on what color you want your crystals to be. Some borax. This is about $5 at Walmart. If you have some left over, there's all kinds of videos. It's a laundry detergent booster, but it has multiple household purposes that it can also be used for. Basically, I think what these crystals are is salt crystals, but I don't know. Some Jägermeister is not necessary, but recommended. So let's get started. If you're going to make this little crystal here, I did that with pipe cleaners. And all I did was, you want to pick a color that's similar. Let's make this our blue one, I guess. And you're just going to want to make some little pointy deals here, like so. Just something for the crystal to adhere to. That should be adequate for a small little crystal. Now you're going to take your barbecue skewer and some floral wire, and just twist your floral wire around your pipe cleaner here. Get it nice and tight. And you want to measure it in the jar. You want to be careful not to get too close to the bottom, because the crystals will form a layer at the bottom. So I'd say a ½ inch from the bottom with these small crystals and you'll be fine. Measure that, cut a little bit above that mark there. And you're going to end up suspending it in the jar here. So like I said, measure it about a ½ inch from the bottom, maybe even an inch, but you can check it as it cools. Wind it around your barbecue skewer. Set it in there like so. Have some aluminum foil ready to top it off. So that one would be ready to mix the borax mixture, but let's talk about some of the other ways to make crystal. The best way to make chunky crystals like this, and the easiest way to make crystal in general, is with some rope. You just take a small length of rope, however big you want the crystal to be. Let's go a little larger this time. Cut it. Same thing here with the barbecue skewer. Just wind it around to attach your rope to the skewer. Nothing fancy about that. Then you're going to want to unfurl the rope a little bit. And something like this should be adequate, but you might end up with something more like this than this one here. So I unstrand it almost completely so that it's like hair hanging off there, and the crystal will really bind to this. you'll have a real nice chunky crystal. This one should end up bigger than that blue one there. I'm only going to demo the actual process of boiling this once, because it's the same for all of it. I'm just showing you the different ways that you can get different shapes of crystal right now. And you can experiment with it and surely figure out some ways on your own even. So that's going to be just fine. We'll set that aside for now. Obviously, if you want larger crystals like this, you're going to need a big pickle jar and you're going to need a lot more borax. But to do that, I just take the barbecue skewers like this, some rubber bands, bind them together first like so. You get the idea, right? Shouldn't have picked such a large rubber band. That happens. And then to add some spacing between them, I'll take either toothpicks or more barbecue skewers and go in between the big pieces and into the rubber band. Just to get them to space out a little bit. Eventually, crystal will adhere to these bamboo skewers all on its own. But it's more helpful if you can get some space in between them. I find it has a much better result. Sometimes I'll even go like this just to get started. Because you can always remove the bottom part of the crystal. You can cut pieces off, whatever. And that's basically it. If you want a straight crystal, you can do all kinds of interesting things like, you know, wrap a pipe cleaner around. This is how I would get something similar to this one, only if I wanted a single spire crystal. You can just wrap the pipe cleaner around the barbecue skewer, kind of push it together. Once it's done, if there's some pipe cleaner showing through, you can put it in another round and more crystals will grow on it. So with these geode type crystals, I'm not really going to be all lengthy unless there's a big demand for it. But what I did for them was I made a circle with the pipe cleaner like this, and then you weave sort of a dome shape, like so, and then eventually you go back and forth. And you just weave this cup shape out of pipe cleaners. Just use more pipe cleaners until you've got a cup shape, and that'll form these geodes. And then what I did was I used air dry clay, packed that around the geode, and painted it to look like stone. Okay, so now we're ready to get started. I've taken this medium-sized pickle jar and I've filled it not quite all the way to the top because we want to make room for the borax. This is the one that we're going to be using the rope for, and I think we'll make it purple. So, now if I was you, I'd probably cover your stove with aluminum foil because this can get messy, but I didn't do that, so maybe you'll just see how messy it can get. So you just take it in, we'll pour it in our pot here. Set the oven to high. Alright, so our water is boiling. I'm going to take the borax. I'm going to start with 1 cup. You really can't use too much borax. It'll just collect at the bottom of your jar if you do. So 1 cup should be adequate for that medium-sized jar. Dump it in. Start stirring it around. You want to stir it in there until it won't take any more borax. Dissolve it as best as possible. Take a quick stop to add some food coloring. I'm using purple. I want it to be a nice dark crystal, so I'm using a lot. If you want it to be a little more translucent, use a little less food coloring. You know, I think I'm going to add a little bit more borax. Let's go with another half cup. One thing I forgot to add to the material list was a funnel. That can make things a lot easier for you. Less likely to have mess. I want to see it get to a rapid boil again before I dump it into my jar. Previous videos I've seen have shown them do this in the microwave, and I just didn't have good results with that. I like to get it to a good hard boil. There we go, we're boiling pretty good. We'll take our funnel, put it inside our jar, pour the solution in. Very careful with this part. Shut the stove off. Start filming. We'll grab our rope. We're going to dip it a couple times in this solution. Then furl it back out. Set it in the jar. Tap it with some aluminum foil. Take it over here to the counter. We'll set it down. We're going to wrap it in a towel. This is important because you don't want the solution to cool back down to room temperature too soon. I would check it in about 12 hours, but it could take 24 and it'll be done. Basically, this is an old jar. Basically, when you see the residue at the bottom here, it's done. Alright, so after 12 hours I checked the jars and they have not even started crystallizing yet. So I removed the towels, waited another 8 hours, and this is what we come up with. The little blue one with the pipe cleaners. Nice little crystal. The aquamarine spire, this was the barbecue skewer with the pipe cleaner wrapped around it. Turned out a bit chunkier than I thought, but I really like how aquamarine green it stayed. The rope crystal, big chunky purple crystal. I do wish it would have been a little bit darker, but that's what we get. Should have used more food coloring, I guess. And the long barbecue skewer in the big jar, the red crystal. Not too bad. I'm going to have to chop the points off of it when I base it. Speaking of basing it, I'm going to base one. I chose the chunky crystal one because it's the most difficult, I'd say, out of these four. The technique's the same for all. There's probably various techniques you might use that are probably better than the way I do it, because the way I do it is a bit crude. Also, at this point, it could be used for jewelry making or whatever. You could wrap the crystals in jewelry, and I've seen many sites where they do that sort of thing. So all you need to base this purple crystal is a washer, a bag of this gravel you can get at the Dollar Tree, maybe some sand. I'm not sure if I'll use it or not. Most likely will, though. A big glue gun. You can get this at Walmart for less than 10 bucks, and a big glue stick or two. Be very careful with this. I have burnt myself a number of times. If you see me sticking my fingers in there, my skin on my fingers is quite thick. Avoid doing that if possible, because this thing will burn you. Alright, I'm going to start by cutting the rope off and any crystal that I don't want. Cut it right like so, and then I'm just going to glue it here to the washer. I got a layer of tin foil underneath, because glue doesn't stick to it all that well, and because I'm about to make a heck of a mess. So I just get glue all over this washer here. And then I hold the crystal down on it. Heck, with this crystal I don't even need to hold it. I can let it sit while I open up my gravel. Open up the bag of gravel. I pour some gravel around the crystal. Like so. Then I'm going to go around the crystal applying more glue. It does not really matter if you get glue on the crystal. Then I just come through and I start pushing the gravel into the crystal. Push down, but don't push down too hard, and if you feel the glue stick to your finger, pull away or you're going to get burnt. I go through and I tap it occasionally just to make sure that I get some rock to secure in there real good. Pull some of the loose gravel away. Well, that might be good enough. I take a look, I make sure no washer's showing. I think we're in pretty good shape. I'll wait for it to dry and cool. While I'm doing that, we'll talk about painting it with a large brush and a little burnt umber. I paint my crystals to be kind of a muddy look because they're going in a cavern or Underdark or something like that, but you can certainly paint it gray stone or whatever if for some reason they were going on a mountainside. There's a number of ways you could base these things. Alright, I'm going to remove the crystal. It's still kind of tacky though. For now I'm going to leave that foil on there. Just want to make sure she still sits flat. Yeah, she's still tacky. I'll start painting her while she sits. You just want to try not to get any of this burnt umber on the crystal itself. You may want to give it a little more time to dry. As I'm having a little trouble here, the crystal's wanting to move a bit. Alright, so that's our first coat of burnt umber. I'm going to let that cool and dry. It's going to have to dry before I can add some highlights to the mud base. So we'll come back in a little bit when it's dry. So the paint is dry. Now we're just going to add some highlights. By doing that, just use a lighter color of brown. In this case I've selected Teddy Bear Tan. By dry brush that means you'll have almost no paint on your brush. So get the paint on the plate, pick some up with your brush, and then take most of it out. And then you lightly go across the surface, picking up just the highlights of the base. That's all there is to it. I'm going to let that dry. I'll highlight the others. I'll be right back. Okay, the paint's dry on our crystals. This final step is very important. It helps hold the color in the crystal. Also, it helps bits of crystal from breaking off, and it helps hold the pebbles and such that we glued together for the base. It helps that all stay together too. All we're going to do is take this to a well-ventilated area and spray it with some of this crystal enamel. So here we go. Okay, so this is the final result of our crystals. This big, pretty purple, chunky one, the aquamarine one, the long red one, and the little blue one. I hope you've enjoyed this video. These crystals, I think, can be at the very least, even if you don't play Dungeons and Dragons, could be a cool experiment. Maybe make a nice paperweight, pretty gift for a grandmother or a mother or something. I don't know. One thing I do want to mention: if you want to make this crystal bigger, say as big as this one, when you're done with your crystals, you're going to have this residue mess in the bottom of your jar. The only way to get that out of the bottom of your jar is to pour this back into the pot, boil it, stir it around with your metal spoon. You might have to do that a couple times to get the crystal to come out. But if you want to make bigger crystals, you can recycle this borax. Just add a little bit of additional borax. Then when you set it to cool under the towel, don't put any crystal in it. Wait until the 12 hours is up, remove the towel, then dangle this crystal in there. 8 to 12 hours later, you'll have a big crystal like this. I know this isn't exactly everybody's cup of tea. No, not everybody's into Dungeons and Dragons or fantasy craft, but I'm relying rather heavily on my Facebook friends just to get my name and my work out there. There is a niche of people who are interested in this sort of thing, but getting YouTube to present this channel on their list is difficult. I need so many views and so many hits. So please like, comment. If you do like it, subscribe, and most of all, share if you don't mind. My next video will probably be a short video. I'm going to call Just My Opinion. It's going to be about world building and how to help dungeon masters who are just starting out. Following that, I'm going to do another crafting tutorial where I'll make these very versatile trees. I know you've probably seen trees before, but have you seen trees where you can remove the foliage and use either just the bare tree or switch them around, make that the autumn colored one, and oh, look at that. Anyhow, I hope you've enjoyed my video.